Hello, everyone. Hi. Thank you so much for being here. Welcome to the Charleston Trendspotting Initiative session. We're going to go ahead and get started now. My name is Leah Hines. I'm the Executive Director of the Charleston Hub, and I'm glad to see all of you here with us today. I'm joined by my colleague, Lisa Hinchliff, University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. We have done the Trendspotting Initiative together for several years. I'm just going to give a little bit of context and background before we get started with the presentation. I'd also like to remind everyone of our code of conduct, which applies for all Charleston Conference events, whether in person or virtual. And we want to remind everyone to make this session accessible. We will have a microphone for audience participation, for questions. We ask that everybody make sure to use the microphone, identify yourselves, and we'll try to rephrase questions as needed. And with that, welcome again, Charleston Trendspotting Initiative, the Trend Lab Charleston Conference 2024. For those of you who may be new to the conference or haven't attended a Trendspotting session before, the Charleston Library Conference was established in 1980. We have Against the Grain, which is a journal, was established in 1989. And the Charleston Hub was started in 2000 as a way to bring all of our disparate content together into one place, all founded by Katina Strout, who's a librarian at the Addlestone Library College at Charleston, who retired a few years back. If you saw her keynote yesterday, she's still very active. She doesn't like to say she's retired. She resists that, but she's still very active with the conference and Against the Grain. The Charleston Trendspotting Initiative started since it was in 2018. It was a conversation that took place between Katina and several attendees at the conference that really stressed the importance of being proactive rather than reactive and looking ahead at trends and issues that are going to impact the world of libraries and scholarly communications rather than waiting until it happens to you. The Trend Lab was our first year. It was a group forum that was, the goal of it was to discuss these potential impacts of trends on the information industry and scholarly communication. And we have held these every year since then at several other industry events. We participate at the Society for Scholarly Publishing's annual meeting and at the Charleston Conference. And last year, for the first time, we were at the Liber Conference in Europe. Each time we meet, it's a similar format, but we use different tools, trend spotting tools, to have different ways to identify and look at these trends and to have a structured brainstorming technique to look at the trends and to discuss them together. So today's agenda, we're currently in the welcome and introductions portion of the day. Lisa will present Futures Thinking 101. We'll do some small group activities, and then we'll have discussion and wrap up at the end, and we'll have audience members report back on your small group activities at the table. So do we want to ask people to combine at this point, or we'll wait until...
Let's do it once we're getting into the activity.
Got it. Okay. With that, I'll turn things over to Lisa. Thank you very much.
So this is always a fun interactive session, and it's good after lunch activity because you can't fall asleep. I want to just sort of ground us a little bit in what does it mean to think about the future. So this area of futures thinking is not a matter of predicting what the future will be, but exploring the possibilities of what the future could be. So it offers a way of actually empowering us to help shape the future so that the future doesn't happen to us, but instead we're part of making it happen through developing policies, strategies, and actions to promote the desirable futures that we'd like to see and hopefully prevent those that we consider to be undesirable. The goal is not to predict, again, a singular future, but to have dialogue, widen our understanding, and help inform our decision-making. So the goal of the kind of session we have today is to identify, assess, and perhaps think about the way that we can shape the systems and relationships that develop over time. So doing this kind of futures thinking requires careful and thoughtful analysis of current conditions, pressures on the system, risks, the resources that we have, and the potential implications of current trends. It is through the process of exploring different ideas that we reveal the potential futures that could come to be. So we're going to be thinking about multiple possible futures, not predicting a particular future. And that leads us then to being able to develop those strategies, policies, action plans, etc., that move us towards our desirable future while avoiding undesirable one. And as a side note, this can be done, for an industry as a whole, for an individual organization. And we've even had people say that they've taken the tools they've learned here to apply to their own personal career and think about the potential futures for them within the world. It drives us to purposeful action to increase the probability, plausibility, and feasibility of those futures that we see that are desirable. Now, I want to give a little caveat here that one common mistake that creeps into this process that we want to be on guard for is that we don't want to conflate our values and our theories about how the world should be with how the world currently is. Because when you act as if the world is how you want it to be, you often leads to adopting strategies that have unintended consequences and inadvertently decrease the likelihood of the desired futures. So this is a place for hard realism. It doesn't mean we have to say that we like the current reality, but we need to deal with the world as it is in order to increase the plausibility, possibility, and feasibility of creating the world we want to have. So with that grounding, which is more lecture than I even like to do, I want us to get into the exploratory part. And the activities that I've chosen for us here today are two that we're going to do. I was very fortunate to attend a week-long training on futures thinking put on by an organization called the Institute for the Future, which is a really fantastic group. If you don't know them, they have a lot of wonderful resources freely available on their website. Not everything's freely available, including this very expensive week-long training, but it was a really great opportunity. And so this is one that they gave us in the toolkit that we worked through, and it's called Flip the Future. In flipping the future, we identify facts about the world in a certain area of activity. So not libraries, but facts related to a smaller scoped area. And we write out those facts. The world is currently this way. And then for every fact we've stated, we write an opposite. Okay? Now, most facts have multiple opposites. Okay? So you can write multiple opposites or just a singular opposite. It's a way of getting us into an imaginary space that helps challenge our mental models of the current world and how we think things will work in the future by imagining a world in which it is opposite of what it is right now. So how do we do that? So this is the process you're going to work through in your small group. And once I finish giving the directions, if you look around your table and your small group is fewer than 3 people, I would highly recommend merging with another group and having groups of at least 4 to 6 people, just so you have more ideas coming into the conversation. So the first thing you have to do is choose a topic for your central focus. It needs to be narrower than something like scholarly publishing, but still broad enough to have multiple facets to consider. So for example, peer review, paper mills. Within the context of libraries, we might not choose like all of libraries, but we might choose metadata or institutional repositories as our area of focus. And then working individually at first, you would brainstorm facts or generally true statements about the topic. Now, go with generally true, not universally true, right? There's always, so generally true statements about this area. And I'm going to encourage you to write each statement on one sticky note, but you can write them on whatever piece of paper you want to write them on. And then after you brainstorm your statements, you're going to take another sticky note, or the reverse of it, and write an opposite. Okay? So I'll just give you an example right now. Scholarly publishers are struggling to handle the volume of submissions that are being generated by paper mills. That is a generally true statement. Okay? An opposite is publishers have no content submitted to them from paper mills. Okay? Another opposite is the only things that are being submitted are from paper mills. Okay, so that's another opposite. Then you're going to share your flipped facts with each other, and you're going to pick one of those as your focus, your flipped fact. So let's say you pick, there are no paper mill papers being submitted to publishers. This is the interesting part then. How did that world come to be? How did it come to be from the world we're in right now, where they're overwhelmed by paper mill submissions, to there being none? What happened to create that world, or what would have to happen for that to come true? What's it like in that future? And are there any signals that you can point to that we're on our way to that future? Or any others that make you say, ooh, highly unlikely we could get to that future? Okay? So it's a winnowing process. First, a big topic area, then a bunch of facts that you flip, and then you work with one of your flip facts. So you'll work on Post-it notes for the first part. When you get to working with your one flipped fact and imagining how that world came to be, you have a big piece of white flip chart paper where you can brainstorm how did that world come to be. And once we get through about 10 to 15 minutes of discussion here, I'll come back and give you the second activity, which relates to the blue piece of paper that's on your tables. Any questions before I release you to the chaos of the conversation? All right, we're good to go. We'll come back together at about 1:45. You guys don't listen to me when I just talk, so I was like, all right, let me try an artificial something that we're a little bit more primed to respond to. I need to interrupt you all because you're doing a great job of flipping facts, but we need to get to this last one, which is picking one and figuring out credible ways that the opposite would come to pass. Would it be because there would be consumer action? Would there be legislation? Would there be, what would have to happen for this alternative flip fact to be true? So 10 minutes to figure that out. Okay, I'm going to give you the next task so that you, if you're ready for it, you can work on it. And if not, you can wrap up this part. So you have a world in which the opposite is true, and you've thought about how that would happen. So now you have an opportunity to do an exercise to crystallize at least a few of those thoughts of how this world came to be by writing it into a news story in the information industry. And you have paste up sheets at your tables. I don't know why we're printing 2020 in 2035. This is coming out in print for some reason, but we are doing opposites. So the idea of headline from the future is that you write a front page news story from a decade in the future that helps us understand how this came to life. These headlines have to be crisp, they have to connect, and they have to synthesize our ideas. Now, of course, you could also write a little article there too. So for this last activity, you are the editors of the primary trade news outlet for the information industry. What are the stories you will publish this week about how your flipped fact is playing out in the industry? Did you posit that some regulation is being created, that there's some sort of new shared organization? What is it that is happening in this future? And I'd encourage you to try and create at least one article with a headline, maybe a sentence or two, and an image, but you can try for more as well. So this is a group activity, but there's copies of the layout for every person in your group at the table, so you can sort of see more of what you're doing. And so after you have some time to work on this, about 10 minutes, at 2:05, we'll come back and we'll hear a headline or two from the future as we wrap up. So get to editing this news publication. All right, I'm going to take moderator's privilege here. And you might be finishing up a little bit, but there are so many awesome things written that I think it'd be a shame not to get at least a few of them out for ours. A lot of conversation about how people can't draw. Just like to remind you, if you had kept drawing for the past 40 years of your life, you'd be better at drawing. Draw every day, you'll get better. We all stopped drawing at like age 6, and then we wonder why we don't get better. You can draw. So what I would like from any volunteers is your currently true statement, your flipped fact, and then at least one headline from your team or from your individuals. Is anyone willing to go first? I was like, is Lisa getting up? No. All right, excellent.
So our generally true statement is some collection resources aren't available online. Our flip was everything is available online. And we came up with about 6 or 7 realities that would have to take place in order for that to come about. Our headline is, "This year's freshmen have never touched a print book." 17-year-old Chris is going off to university with 3 monitors, a fold phone, and virtual glasses, but no paper books, no notepaper, and no pens.
Hey. All right, and they have a nice little image of Chris here too, looking at a print artifact and very confused. All right, this group back here, your true statement, your flipped fact, and a headline or two.
Thank you. I'm Becca Shaw from SAGE. So our currently generally true statement is that many researchers use generative AI despite its imperfect nature. And our flip statement is that many researchers use generative AI and it's flawless. So our headlines, inspired by today's announcement of The Onion making a particular acquisition, is that so our article is titled "Scholar Writes Their Own Research Article." It'll come to you. And then we also had another title suggested that "In a world of perfect information, world peace finally achieved."
Excellent, excellent. Who else is willing to? I've seen them as I'm walking around. They're awesome. So, all right, over here. There's a small fight going on.
Okay. All right.
There's our
Here. So our initial fact is the censorship of books is on the rise. Our flip fact was censorship of books is on the wane. And we had a lot of different conversations about, can I hold your notes? Oh. Oh, okay. So I was going to say we had a lot of conversation about how we would get to that point. Of course, a lot of it was cultural and political. We did also kind of have some far-fetched ideas, such as maybe not far-fetched, but book ranking system, sort of in the same way that you might have a movie ranking or something for an album. And we weren't necessarily suggesting that was a good thing, but we were considering it because you do see less censorship in that they've kind of had these pre-built rankings. So anyway, it was just kind of one path we were playing around with. Long story short, we had a headline from 2034, and we kind of went all in here. So Ta-Nehisi Coates publishes YA book on biracial transgender romance to critical acclaim. Subheadline, community celebrates in North Dakota.
No offense to anyone in North Dakota.
And we
Great. And they do not want to share their image, but I think it's all good just fine. It looks good. All right. We've got 3 tables that have, put the challenge on. All right. Excellent.
Our actual fact was the output of publishing is outpacing our capacity to vet, acquire, and manage it. And the flip fact was that we can keep up with the publishing output. So one headline was, AI peer review drives publication output to all-time high, costs still out of reach for libraries. And then related, first fusion reactor goes live to power server farms for AI engines.
Great. All right. Anyone else? All right. Good.
So our current fact is that AI product add-ons are increasing the prices of subscriptions. And the opposite fact is that AI tools are built into all database products at no extra cost. Our headline is AI for All. Government agrees to provide support for OpenAI, which is something we were imagining, previously run by a pirate group, and the pirates retire. And this pirate is drinking a coconut drink, I think.
Excellent. Thank you. Imagining some legislation there. Okay. And this group up here. That's totally fine.
Okay, so our true statement is commercial publishers have found a way to make OA profitable. The flip would be OA is not profitable for commercial publishers. And we wanted to think about this as far as like action would be only nonprofit publishers can manage open access, and we need a policy. So our headline is New OA Policy, Bad News for Commercial Publishers. And, we just wrote that now it's only being controlled by nonprofit publishers, and it's now a whole new landscape.
All right, excellent. So thank you very much. We're coming to the end of our time here today. So obviously in an hour, we're not going to be able to do like a fulsome, complete kind of deep dive into this, but I hope it kind of runs you through a process that you could consider using either this or any number of tools that help us think past just tomorrow and maybe even past just a year from now. Because one of the challenges is we know that when we think about the near future, we tend to think it'll be very similar to what it is right now. But then when we look back 5 years, we know things are radically different. And this is a way of us sort of thinking forward 5 or 10 years to the point where we know things will be different, but we need tools to help us sort of imagine what those differences might be. I want to thank you for your willingness as well to sort of just follow the directions, even if they felt a little silly or a little bit, what are we doing? This kind of playfulness is also a really important part of being able to think about the future and to think creatively about opportunities that we have to impact it. We know that many people have actually even taken their small group that you've now met and actually proposed sessions for future conferences out of the things they talked about here today. No pressure. You're welcome to use these materials back at your own institution or the like. It's an absolute pleasure to be with you here today. Leah got called away as the executive director of the conference to deal with something. So I was like, yep, go, I'm here. If you have a moment to help me clean up and put the markers and the Post-it notes into this brown Amazon bag on your way out, I'd really appreciate it as we prep the room for the next group. Thank you so much for being with us today.